Okay, so what I want to talk about today in this lesson is this idea of what are known as coordinates. So Coordinates. So you have coordinates, and then we have this idea of what's known as quadrants. So coordinates and quadrants. So what we can do is we can take something like this here, and we can create what's known as an x-axis. So let's say, so this horizontal line that goes across here, so this, we can call this the x-axis. Okay, so this is the horizontal line, so from here all the way over to here, okay, that horizontal line. And then this vertical line from here to here, this is what's known as the y-axis. So y-axis. Now what we can do then is we can put in what are known as coordinates. Okay, so this word here. So we can have x coordinates and then we can have what are known as y coordinates that will go on the y-axis. So you have the axis, so the axis is the line itself, and then the coordinates are the points that we can put onto it. So the coordinates would look something like this. So this middle part, this, let's say here in the middle, this is 0. And I'm just going to write this. So this is like the value that would be here would be 0. Okay, and this middle part is what's known as so it's 0. And this is what's known as the origin. So let me make that better. Origin. So that's what's known as the origin. Okay, and this is it's 0. The value for this is 0. Now what we can do is if we think about the x-axis, so this right hand side here, okay, these are going to hold all the positive values, okay, the positive integers, and this left hand side here is going to hold all the negative integers. So what we can say is, so this is 0, and then we can say we can make this 1, this 2, this 3, 4, and then this one here will be 5. So these are the x coordinates, okay, the positive x values. Now if we think about it, so this is just like a number line, and then on the right hand side then you have the negative values. So this one here is going to be -1, so this one here is going to be -2, this one here is going to be -3, -4, and then -5. Okay, so these are what are known as the x coordinates, and you have the positive integers on the right hand side and the negative integers on the left hand side, just like a number line. And then in the middle here, where the value is 0, that's what's known as the origin. Now if we then move up, let's say we go up, so we put in, so we have the y-axis, which is this vertical line, and then you have what are known as the y coordinates. So the y coordinates then, so the top part are the positives and the bottom part are the negatives. Okay, so what does that look like? So this here is going to be 1, this here is going to be 2, this here is going to be 3, 4, and then this up here is going to be 5. Okay, so they're the y coordinates, and then underneath then here we have the y coordinates, but they're the negative integers. So we're going to have -1, -2, -3, -4, and then this last one will be -5. Let's just move this down just a little bit. So this is going to be -5. So these are what are known. So you have your axis. So you have your x-axis and your y-axis, and then you have on the axis is broken up into divisions. Each division has a value, and that's what's known as its coordinate. So the x-axis has its x coordinates, and the y-axis has its y coordinates. Now what we can see here as well is that if we look here, we have, so this, if you take this, so this here is what's known as a grid. Okay, so we have a grid, okay, and we can see here that we've split it up. Now, if we look here, so we have 4 parts, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these, so you have, let's say, so this space is 1, this space is 2, 3, and 4. So it's broken up into 4 spaces, and each of these spaces are what are known as quadrants. So this one is the first. So 1 here. So 1 would be, it's equal to the first quadrant. So 2 is equal to the second quadrant. 3 is equal to the third quadrant. And then 4 is equal to the fourth quadrant. So these are your quadrants. Okay, so they can be split up into quadrants. So what I want to do now is I want to kind of start thinking about this idea of like coordinates. So what we can do is we can place points anywhere within these grids, and those points will have x coordinates and y coordinates. And let's have a look at what that means. So I'm going to just get rid of some of the numbers and things that we have here so we can work on the grid. So I just want to get rid of some of these. So remember, the middle part is what's known as the origin. Okay, and this is 5. So let's say if we were to, so what we can do then is we can actually start to place a point. So if I was to put, let's say, a point here, okay, and I was to call this point A. So point A is going to have an x value and it's going to have a y value. And we can write it like this. So it's going to have, so it's x is the value that will go on the left, and on the right is the value that will go on y. So if we were to think about, like, how would we draw this? So in order to get the x value, we start at the origin, which is here, and we move our way across like so, and we see here that we stop on the x value of 3, which is here. And then what we can do is we can draw a line up to where the point is, like so. So the point is here. And then what we do is we draw a line across until we cut the y-axis. So we draw a line across like this. And we see that it cuts it at 3. So what we can say is that this point A, its coordinates, so its x coordinate is 3, and its y coordinate is also 3. So this here is the point, and it's the coordinate, so it's a point, and it has an x value and it has a y value. Like similarly, if I wanted to put, let's say if I put a point here, like so there. So what I want to do is I want to get its x value. So we can draw, so it's going to have a coordinate. So it's going to have an x value and it's going to have a y value. So in order for me to get the x value, I start at the origin, which is here in the middle, and I move out until I'm lined up with the point. So we can see here, if we move out in this direction, it's roughly here at -3. Okay, so minus 3 is the x value. So the x value is going to be -3. And then the y value, we have to move up where the point is and then draw our line back vertically across. We can see that it cuts the y-axis at 2. So it's -3, 2. Okay, so these are the coordinates for this particular point. And we can call this, let's say, point B. So this is point B. And the same thing, like if I wanted to put a point, let's say, down here. So let's say if I put the point here, and I call this point C. So this is going to have an x value, so an x value and a y value, like so. So if we think about what its x value is, so again we start at the origin, which is in the middle. We move our point across, so we can see here that the x value is -3. So this is -3, and then if we draw our line down, like so, we hit the point and then we draw a line across until it cuts the y-axis. And we can see here that the value here is -3. So it's -3, -3. So the coordinate for that point is -3, -3. So a way to kind of think about it is then like these things that I'm highlighting here, these points, and here. These are what are known as, these are called coordinates. This is what we mean by a coordinates. And then the quadrants then, so let's say if I was to split this up into quadrants, so let's say, so this whole area here, so let's say this whole section here, this whole square area within here, this is what's known as the first quadrant. And then if you take, let's say, so down here, this whole space here, this is what's known as the second quadrant. This space down here, this is the third quadrant. And then let me just get a different color. So I'm going to use red. So then let's say this space here, I don't want to color over all the red. So this is what's known as the fourth quadrant. So that's what we mean by coordinates and quadrants, and when we're looking at coordinates and quadrants. So this whole thing here is what's known as a grid. And another way to kind of think about it as well, so it's a grid. So this whole thing is a grid. Or another idea or a way to kind of think about it is what's known as a coordinated plane. So CO. So coordinated plane. And the reason it's coordinated plane is because it has coordinates. So it has, and you can find any particular point, let's say, on the plane as well. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So it's just an introduction to this idea of coordinates. So thank you for listening.